Take 3 deep breaths and relax your body. With each out breath, finding a posture that is comfortable and that you can remain still and relaxed. Now let your breath be natural. Do not control it. Do not modify it. Become aware of any perceptions, sounds, tactile sensations, thoughts, emotions, anything arising right now in the present moment. Let's set our motivation. Motivation of bodhicitta. Through our practice, may we cultivate the causes that lead to enlightenment. And may we benefit other sentient beings. Now, let's focus our attention on our chosen object, cultivating calm abiding, single-pointed attention. The sensations of the breath, the space of the mind and mental events, the image of a Buddha, focusing on loving kindness, or in Shamatha, without an object, in awareness of awareness. If you get distracted, bring your attention back to your meditation object. Relaxing deeper and deeper. And now, while continuing sustaining that focus, presence, let's engage in the practice of the far-reaching attitude of joyous effort. Joyous effort is taking delight in what is virtuous and worthwhile. And to cultivate it, we must counteract the three kinds of laziness. The first one is procrastination and sleep. So apply this reflection not only to the current retreat, but in your life in general. Do you put off Dharma study and practice? Do you sleep more than your body needs? Do you like to lie around and do nothing, letting your mind wander, daydream? If so, meditation on death will help you to not waste time being slothful. The second kind of laziness is attachment to worldly affairs and pleasures. Do you keep busy doing things or worrying about things which are not very important from a Dharma viewpoint? Are you attached to worldly success? Worldly pleasures? And activities that are not very meaningful in the long run? If so, reflect on the disadvantages of cyclic existence. This will help you see the futility of being attached to cyclic existence and invigorate your desire to be free from it. And it will also enable you to set your priorities wisely. The third kind of laziness is discouragement and putting yourself down. Do you tend to be self-critical and judgmental? Do you have difficulties with self-esteem? Remember your Buddha nature and reflect on your precious human life. This will uplift your mind so you can recognize your potential. Now develop a sense of courage and joy so that you can engage in the practices of joyous effort. Imagine yourself withstanding discomfort to work for others, for their benefit. And feeling joyful. For being able to do so. Imagine yourself doing all constructive actions motivated by the altruistic intention. Imagine yourself practicing with discipline, meditating every day, and working to benefit others. Now dissolve any analysis, visualization, thoughts, and just rest in present awareness. And let's finish dedicating the merit of this practice so that we can continue practicing with joyous effort and cultivating the causes that lead to enlightenment, freedom, and to be of benefit to countless sentient beings. So this is the fourth of the 6 paramitas, or the 6 perfections, and it's also called perseverance or zeal, and it has this element of having enthusiasm, being joyful, and discipline at the same time. So we do effort and we keep a discipline with our practice, but in a way it's a joyful effort. It's not like the kind of effort we do when we are chasing after some mundane concern and we have to work really hard to get it and do all kinds of detrimental actions for our bodies, our health, and harming others. But it's an effort that the more you do it, the more relaxed you feel, the more present, the more happiness arises. Even if there's some discomfort because you're sitting in meditation or you're engaging in activity that is helping others and you might face some kind of discomfort, you don't mind because you're experiencing a mind that is balanced, that is finding peace, meaning in your life, and you start feeling happier, you become more flexible. So the joy naturally arises when we do this kind of effort. And when we do the opposite, when we practice just laziness, in this case, as you see, laziness is not just wasting time, letting your mind being completely caught up with thought and distraction, but it's also working really hard for the wrong purposes or the wrong goals. Like you can be very hardworking and be very active and busy, but you are doing it for the wrong motivation. Maybe you just want accumulation of money or wealth or material things or success or fame, and you're not caring about those around you, or you're not practicing any kind of spiritual path or inner transformation, not working with your mental afflictions, then it's a kind of laziness. And also putting ourselves down and thinking that we can't do it. So hard to sit and meditate. It's so hard to practice. It's so hard to go and do something meaningful in the world and help others. So you think I'm not good at it. I'm so limited. And you start judging yourself. And that's paralyzing, because if you think in that way about yourself, you're not going to do anything. You're not going to practice. You're not going to change your life. You're not cultivate the causes for happiness. You're not going to work with those mental afflictions. And yes, sometimes we get discouraged because we are meditating, we're practicing, we're studying, we're trying to do our best, but we still get angry, or we still get attached, or we still get distracted, a lot of distraction, right? But the point is to know that we're practicing and not to get discouraged and not feel that we will never be able to free ourselves. So that enthusiasm is keeping a positive attitude, keeping an enthusiastic attitude. And I think many of you experience it during the retreat. At the beginning and even the middle, there's a lot of up and downs. Some sessions are good, some sessions are not so good, according to our labels. And sometimes we feel happy, sometimes we feel depressed or angry, or different emotions came up. And then you had to pass through that process of releasing and letting go of expectations, because we always have expectations about everything we do. And even coming to this retreat, you might have huge expectations that you were going to achieve something or experience something or find peace or anything. And when you don't find those expectations, they are not fulfilled, you start getting worried or stressed or sad or depressed. But then there comes a time where you let go, and I think many of you found that moment of just finding an equanimity, an enthusiasm of keep going. And then all those obstacles, they just dissolved. And you took the attitude of saying, okay, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good, sometimes I'm distracted, sometimes my meditation is really good. And sometimes I have emotions, but I know they pass. I learned how to observe my mind. So you reach a point where you were able to just be present with whatever comes up. And that's progress. That's progress in the practice. It might not feel like a huge experience where you're levitating and flying and or dissolving your body or anything that you can think of. But just finding that equanimity and keep that perseverance, like keep practicing day by day, is what starts making those changes, balancing our mind, balancing our emotions. So this is a very important part of the path, to have that joyous effort. And sometimes we feel that there's some mystical teaching that we need to receive, or some course that we need to take, or some book that we need to find, because the truth is somewhere else, that we still don't get it. We need something else. And that can be just another way of distracting ourselves or deceiving ourselves. We have already everything we need. We just need to practice and work with those mental afflictions until they are completely dissolved. Stop creating the causes of suffering. We already reflected and reflected and reflected on what are the causes of suffering. So maybe some of you are thinking, well, now I need to find a path. I need to find a teacher. I need to find something. But you're already in a path. You already, maybe from lives and lives before this one, you're already in a path of inner transformation, of development, of seeking your true nature. And all the books you've read, all the courses you've taken, all the teachings you are attending, all the retreats you've done, everything, they all are part of your path. They all are part of that search for the truth. So the thing is knowing where to put that in the bigger picture, and knowing does this corresponds to an ethical way of life. Okay, what else do I need to live to make a good foundation on the practice of ethics? Well, I need to practice more generosity, or I need to practice more patience, I need to work with anger, I need to stop criticizing and gossiping. You know what you need to do. We just need to keep practicing and studying and getting motivated by the books we read, by the teachings we receive. Just get the motivation and get discipline in cultivating a new habit, new habits, and decreasing those destructive habits, right? And we already know what are the causes of suffering, so we just need to stop perpetuating them and start cultivating the causes of happiness. And we already found meditation in this retreat or in previous retreats, in different traditions, anywhere. The point is that you know how to meditate, and you know what needs to be done to tame your mind, to stop chasing that conceptual thinking, continuous elaboration. We need to bring our minds to the present and rest, learn to rest in the present and focus our attention. And we know that if we develop our mind in that way, we can apply it to any other practices that we want to do. The practices of the 6 perfections, we want to perfect the 4 immeasurables. We just apply all that we are working on our minds to the development of those practices, right? And then we know that if we want freedom, it's not enough to cultivate a good heart, an ethical way of life, and a focused mind. We need to develop wisdom, understand reality, see reality as it is. And this is not a Buddhist thing. Everything is impermanent, yes. Whether we like it or not, doesn't matter if there's someone that tells you, no, not everything is impermanent. Ask them to prove it to you. If you observe reality and go deeper and deeper, that's reality. Everything is impermanent. So we need to make peace with that characteristic of reality and understand it deeply in order to transform our lives. In the same way, we need to get the realization of the interdependence that we have with everybody else, with all phenomena. So practicing vipashyana, if we really want to be free from suffering, completely free, if we want to become Buddhas or liberated beings or just be better than how we are. We dissipate all our mental afflictions and our ignorance. We need to practice vipashyana. So there's many meditations that we can do on emptiness, for mind changings, for applications of mindfulness, but we know everything that is related to wisdom enters into that category of vipashyana, insight, understanding things as they are. So if we know this, we can incorporate any teaching we take, any book we read, with critical thinking and knowing, is this conducive for my spiritual path, for my development, for my taming my mind, for helping me be more kind, to help others to live a more meaningful life. And then we know there is the Vajrayana vehicle, and there are two ways to take that vehicle if we are interested. There is the way of the sadhana practice, generation and completion stages, where we receive an empowerment of Chenrezig or Tara or any Buddha figure that is a symbol or an archetype of aspect of our Buddha nature. We identify with that by doing the sadhana that is corresponding to that empowerment. We do the practice that includes refuge, the four immeasurables, the dissolution in emptiness, visualization as the Buddha figure, so that we dissolve our sense of personal identity, that grasping that we have to our bodies and ourselves. We manifest as the Buddha, and then we recite the mantra for a certain time, and then we do a dissolution and a dedication. These are the steps of all the tantric practices, most of them. And then we can go deeper into that path, or we can take the path which is, when I say path, but it's practice, it's different practices that you implement and you have to do again and again and again. So you can take the Mahamudra or the Dzogchen practices, instructed by a qualified master. If you read it from a book, or you do a sadhana practice from a book, you are not gonna get the result. It's very important in Vajrayana, the relation with a teacher that gives you the empowerment, that puts the seed in your mind stream, that teach you how to do the practice. And in the Mahamudra and Dzogchen, the introduction to the nature of mind, recognizing your Buddha nature and resting on your Buddha nature. And then there's other secret practices that I can't talk with you, but in the Mahamudra is the 6 yogas of Naropa, and in the Dzogchen is the practice of Togya. So the first part is similar in both ways. There is the Mahamudra, working with the mind, resting in nature of mind, and the Dzogchen, resting in nature of mind. And they are more, they have some similitude with the practice of Zen. In the Zen tradition, you're integrating Shamatha, vipashyana, bodhicitta, everything. It's same in the Dzogchen and Mahamudra, but it's a bit different because of the view, meditation, and conduct, and you need to receive the teachings. But there is these ways. But all the traditions, they have the practices we've seen here as the foundation, which is Shamatha, Vipassana, Bodhicitta. So we need, in order to actualize any of those paths, we need to concentrate, being able to dwell in calm abiding for a long time, being able to be focused and present. We need Vipassana, we need the realization of emptiness, we need to seal our practice with bodhicitta. We need that motivation to become part of us. Not just say it a couple of times, but we need to die, make sure we die, having that bodhicitta to the biggest way we can develop it. Because that's what is going to give us impulse, life after life after life, to keep in the path that leads to complete freedom and Buddhahood. And so all of these practices we've seen, they belong to all the Buddhist tradition. And they balance us. Even if we're not Buddhist, they balance, as we saw, our intentions. We put our intentions in place. We have the cognitive balance. They balance our attention. They allow us to be present and focused. They balance our cognitive balance. It puts the cognitive element in place. Instead of projecting and inventing a reality that is not there, we see reality as it is. And it gave us the balance of the heart, of cultivating our heart, kind heart, connecting with others, and that's going to give us a lot of joy too. So we need to persevere in this, keep practicing day by day. Not only on the cushion, we need to practice every moment, right? When we eat, when we walk, when we engage in conversations with others, when we work, and be constantly checking our minds, our motivations, our thoughts, and keep training our minds. In the same way as if we don't do any exercise and we don't train our bodies in being healthy, we don't put attention, we don't feed them well, and we don't take care of our bodies, they just get sick and they develop a lot of problems. The same way, if we don't keep training our minds, keep taking care of what are we thinking, what are we doing, what are we saying, moment by moment, then it just fills with mental afflictions and it becomes like that crazy monkey mind, as Mingyur Rinpoche says, out of control. So the Buddha summarized the whole Buddhism in these 3 things. Tame your mind, avoid harming others, and help whenever you can. So it's as simple as that. So we don't need to overcomplicate and think, oh, Buddhism is so complicated, it has so many teachings, so many paths, so many things. I'm never going to understand all of this. It's not like that. It's as simple as this. Of course, there's millions of people, and each one of us is a bit different. So all the practices are developed for different kinds of people so that we can get it, so that we can find practices that resonate with us. There's a bunch of ways to practice shamatha, but we need to find the calm abiding. There's a bunch of ways of practicing vipashyana or developing our heart. Find the practices that help you develop these things. And then keep that joyous effort. Keep practicing day by day by day, and then do retreats whenever you can, because that's going to boost your practice. So sometimes do a weekend retreat or half day of retreat. We used to do in Mexico, in our Dharma Center, we used to do a lot of Saturday retreats. So we would meet from, like 9 to 3 p.m. and then we would do sessions in silence, sitting, walking slowly with the hands. You can put them in this mudra to contain your mind. Then walk very, very slowly, feeling every step and connecting it with your breath. and then another session sitting or laying down, and then another session. Then we would take a tea break, and then everybody would bring some food and we would share with each other. And that's a way to do retreat too, like taking half Saturday or half Sunday, or do it by yourself, or go to a cabin, or invite your friends to meditate with you. There's so many ways. And then if you can, like you saw in this retreat, because of the length of the retreat, you reach a point where you just kind of settle and you're just in the flow, maybe still getting a lot of distraction and emotions or anything, but you can see how you entered the retreat with a mind that was very disturbed, agitated, how you had to pass through some obstacles of adaptation and all the things that were coming up as you were observing your mind and didn't have all those distractions and stimulations. But then you reach a point where you give up. You give up trying to control or modify or fulfill those expectations. You just let go. And in that moment, you kind of start surfing in that retreat. But then if it ends too soon, then you are again in the distraction and it lasts very little. So if you can make it longer, then you have more time in the middle to have that experience of completely being present and forgetting about the past, the future, and all the expectations, right? So you still have time here. You have a couple of weeks where you can continue practicing. And I do recommend those of you who have the wish, because this cannot be forced. You shouldn't never impose on yourself, I'm going to do a 6-month retreat, but I really don't want. What I really want is to be with my family. If you do that, it's going to be counterproductive, counteractive to your meditation. But if you have the wish, it feels really good. I really enjoy being in retreat. Then I encourage you to stay longer. Because you already have momentum, you already have the conditions. And if you think, maybe there's a better place somewhere else, maybe if I go to the Himalayas, or maybe I go to Nepal, maybe I go to Thailand, I'm going to find a better place to do retreat. That place doesn't exist. It's in our minds. And you can move from one place to another, and you will never be satisfied. So, this is an excellent place. Yeah, might not be perfect, because perfect doesn't exist, but it has many conducive conditions, and you already have some momentum. You already have everything taken care of. So if you can, and if you wish, I know some of you do, so that's why I'm saying it, continue here. Continue practicing. And then, but it's also good to put a time, not to say, I'm going to just become a yogi and meditate indefinitely forever. So if you do that, also you put kind of some pressure on yourself, like now I've told everybody that I'm a meditator and I'm in silence, or that I have quit all mundane things, and now how embarrassing to come back to the world and wanting to re-engage in mundane activities. Don't do that. So put a time and say, okay, maybe I want to stay longer. I'm going to do another month. And then in 1 month, you reflect. Maybe it's time to close it. Or maybe I want to do 3 more months. So you put a time and you try to commit to that time that you set, but you know it's going to come to an end. And when you finish, you're going to go out and you're going to explore how you feel and do other things. That's better. And so if you can, continue. And if you can't, and if you have to go back home because you have work or your family or anything, or you already have plans to do something else, then close your retreat, but try to bring that that learning you have of being disciplined into your whatever new life or same life, but just bring that discipline, that effort that you've cultivated during this retreat, and not let it just dilute. Make a commitment to yourself. Make appointments to yourself of what are your meditation times, or how do you want to approach your practice, and make it a priority. So that's important. And then if you want to make longer retreats, it's possible. I will talk with those of you who want to do longer retreats and tell you some options, okay? So this is for the far-reaching attitude of joyous effort. Tomorrow, in theory, we would have the fifth, which is concentration, but we don't need to have it, and we are going to go out. We really don't need to have it because it's the practice of shamatha. And we have already done it during the whole retreat, and we have discussed it in several sessions. So you know the fifth perfection is concentration. And concentration is taming our minds, focusing single-pointedly in one object. If we just disperse in many objects, I just like choiceless awareness. Well, you're never going to collect your mind and being able to direct it like a laser because you're not practicing it. So it's okay to be just mindfully present. It's nice, it's relaxing, it has benefits, but that's not the practice of concentration. The practice of concentration implies, yes, calm abiding, being in the flow, but also single-pointed attention. And to develop single-pointed attention, you need one object and focusing there. Yeah, maybe the next session you change to the other object. Maybe you're doing two. But during the session, you're focusing on one thing, and everything else is a distraction. Just a second. Even if the most virtuous thought arises, I'm feeling so much compassion for all sentient beings. I'm so loving. Then you want to start thinking about your compassion and what you're going to do for others and how you're going to help them. Then that becomes a distraction because you're doing the shamatha practice in this session. So you focus. Whether it's a virtuous thought or a mental affliction, a very negative thought, you let it go. No grasping, no distraction. You bring back to the breath or the space of the mind, wherever you practice you're doing. Right? Now you finish your meditation, and then you can devote some time to reflect on that compassion or solve your taxes or anything you need to think about, right? Book your flights or something. But during the session, it's just focusing, not even distracted with a meaningful motivation. That's why we do it at the beginning of the session, and then you just let it go. You're not thinking, I'm focusing on concentration because I want to achieve enlightenment, That's just giving the direction at the beginning. But then you drop all expectations and just focus, okay? So concentration you already know. Many of you have read the Attention Revolution and other books that talk about how to practice shine or shamatha. This practice that will help us develop all the others. And it's gonna tame our mental afflictions, will be reduced so that we can have clarity and we can start working with eradicating the causes of suffering. Okay? Yes?
Shamatha without a sign, how is it without concentration?
Yeah, it's awareness of awareness. So you're not paying attention to the physical senses. You're not paying attention to the visual, the sensory, the auditive. You're not paying attention to anything. Not even the mind, your thoughts, your emotions, like in settling the mind. But you know the quality of knowing and being aware. You're conscious. That's your object. Is awareness looking at itself. So awareness is just focused on being aware. And everything else is, maybe you notice it, but you're not paying attention. Like when you're reading a book, very focused, very concentrated, you hear the phone, maybe you hear it, but you're not paying attention. You hear the birds, but you're not paying attention. And eventually, if you're really focused on what you're reading, you don't even hear it, because all your attention is here. So in that way, we want to focus just on awareness, and if there's a thought, an emotion, a sound, a sensation, we're not paying attention, okay? We're bringing our... And then, in order to do it, we can do the oscillation or the space, becoming aware of the space around us. Remember the different ways of practicing shamatha without a sign, okay? Yes?
Could you speak a little about the countersign?
The nimitta? Yeah.
The visual that pops to mind, how to identify it, and...
Yeah, in the practice of... in the practice of mindfulness of breathing, because it's a physical object we're taking. In the other case of the settling the mind and shamatha without a sign, we're already focusing on the consciousness, or the space of the mind. It's mental. But in the case of shamatha with the breath, we're focusing on the tactile sensations of the breath at the nostrils. First, throughout the body, that helps us cultivate relaxation, but it's an object that is very diffused. Then, to cultivate stability, we focus on the abdomen. That's more narrow, right? But eventually, we want to move to the sensations of the breath in the nose, because that's a more reduced area, more focus, and more subtle. Also, it makes you focus more strongly because it's more difficult to detect. So, as you do that, eventually, because we're leaving the desire realm and moving into the form realm, shamatha is the access, the achievement of shamatha, the 10th stage, would be the access to the first concentration. There are deeper concentrations after that, but we don't need to go into there. And some Theravada centers, they practice this, but according to the Tibetan tradition, we don't need that. That's enough to continue with vipashyana and other practices, and it's kind of a detour. So, but we need that access, concentration, access to the form realm. So we need to switch from a physical object to a mental object, because we're going to withdraw all our physical senses and go into a purely mental realm. So as you do that practice of mindfulness of breathing, naturally it's going to arise something called nimitta. And for some people it's like a star, like a cloud, like a light manifesting around the area of your nose, but it's a mental image. It's not physical, but it's intermittent. It will appear and disappear, and eventually it will get stable, and then you switch your attention. First, you treat it as any other mental event, where you keep focusing on the sensations of the breath, not on that. And this can arise sometimes like a flash or something. So until it's totally stable and present all the time, then you switch from the concentration on the nostrils to the nimitta, and that becomes your object all the way on the further stages. So this is mostly described in the Theravada tradition, and you can find more information in the book of Buddhaghosa, in the Path of Purification, and in other texts. But in the Tibetan tradition, not always is mentioned that it will manifest that nimitta. So it could not appear, or it could appear, but eventually you're going to the space of the mind. You're going to the mind. What you're withdrawing into is the substrate. When you do settling the mind in its natural state, what you're perceiving is the substrate. What you're going to is the substrate. When all the thoughts are calmed down, what you're seeing as the space of the mind, you have the experience of being an awareness, perceiving the space. And that space is a substrate. And who is perceiving that substrate? The substrate consciousness, right? It feels like there are two, the substrate consciousness and the substrate. But they're the same, they're non-dual. So eventually, in the last stage, you will have to turn around that consciousness and look at the observer, the one who is experiencing the substrate. And that's the substrate consciousness. So if you do shamatha without a sign, from the very beginning, that's leading you to the substrate consciousness. So it's just different approaches, to reach the same place. But the nimittas are kind of it's a countersign in the form realm. So every element, like the water element, the earth element, air, every element has a counterpart in that form realm. It's like Plato's realm of archetypes. So someone who has mastered other concentrations that come after the shamatha, they are able to create some kind of illusions in this world, in the Sire realm, by superimposing, for example, the earth element on the water element. And then you could temporarily solidify water and walk on top of water, or do things like that. So I've heard a teacher saying that, for example, these stories we hear from the Bible, that someone was walking on water, it's because they had such a mastery of the mind that they were able to do this kind of thing. But we can train in developing all these abilities, right? Also, you can train in developing clairvoyance and clairaudience and all kinds of what we call supernatural powers. And we know, in India, there's a lot of yogis who have mastery of concentration. It's not just a Buddhist thing. And they are able to perform things that look miraculous. They can stand on fire and not being burned, or do all kinds of things because of the level of concentration and access to these different realms that are mental. Then the Sufis and other traditions also have practitioners that have mastery over the elements. They can bend objects. They can do different kinds of things. I heard the case of a Sufi master that was able to put like a knife or a sword or things through his body, and it would pass through and it wouldn't hurt him. And they took him to a lab to experiment, to make some tests. And so there's all kinds of things we've heard, and we think, well, maybe that's not true. But there's also many evidence that it is. There is also practitioners that they can stop breathing for a very long time. And that's because they are in that state of samadhi. They can withdraw like all the bodily functions. Even some of them can enter into a state of like coma, like the body stops, but it's not dead. It's just that their minds is in that concentration. So sometimes we feel during our practice that we cannot breathe, or that our breath is becoming very, very subtle, that we almost don't need to take the next in-breath, and we might get scared. But don't worry, this is normal. It's just that your body is balancing, your mind is getting focused. But eventually you can get the mastery of staying several days without breathing. The Buddha could do that easily. He mastered all these practices. So read more about it and get familiar with the stages and what happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I was reading from some old masters of Mahayana that the best base camp of Shamatha for transitioning to vipashyana, to getting the insight, is the fourth concentration stabilization of equipose. This to me sounds very similar as fourth jhana of equanimity. So how is then this relationship? You have to go through the jhanas to basically four jhana of equanimity is the shamatha of
the jhanas.
equipose.
The jhanas are the concentrations.
Yes.
So they have different names, and you don't have to go in there. I mean, there is debate, If you go to some Theravada centers, they will say you need to access all those concentrations in order to do vipassana correctly. But in the Buddhist tradition, in the Tibetan tradition, we have masters like Tsongkhapa, who was an extremely erudite and realized master, and others who say, no, you don't need that. You just need the access to the first jhana, to the first concentration.
So shamatha is then before the jhanas, basically, in the strength of concentration. Yeah. And then this equipose, this means like in shamatha territory, like that you kind of you're equanimous to.
No, equipoise means that that you are like completely focused and in the flow, let's say. You at that point you don't have any distractions or agitation or laxity to guard off. And a sense of equanimity, of course, arises since before, because you are accepting being present with your breath or any object, and you are not chasing with attachment and aversion, right? So, but there are some centers that practice the concentrations, and you can also go in there. Yeah. So much time. Yeah.
Other than being aware of your Buddha nature to counter the three lazinesses, is there any other antidotes which you can apply for the three lazinesses, three types of laziness? One you mentioned is to be aware of your innate Buddha nature. Other than that, is there anything that you can do to counter the laziness? Three types of laziness that one encounters.
Yeah, well, that was the putting yourself down.
Yeah.
So it was thinking that you have Buddha nature.
Yeah.
That
so
you
that
have the
one
potential.
One of the things, but you mentioned three types of laziness.
Yeah.
So what are the different types of antidotes that one could apply?
One was procrastination and sleep, and the antidote was to meditate on death.
Okay.
The second one was attachment to worldly affairs and pleasures, and the antidote is to reflect on the disadvantages of cyclic existence. And then it's like saying, why am I pursuing all these pleasures and success and all these things? If I see it from the perspective of cyclic existence, that I'm going to lose everything, I'm going to die, and then start over, come to take rebirth with a naked body, having no possessions, having no education, and having to work again to achieve all these things, and then lose it. I've lost it many times. You've been a king, you've been a beggar. We've been everywhere. We have achieved shamatha, we've lost it. We've been everywhere. So at some point, you say cyclic existence has no end until I do something. And so that's the motivation to see, why am I pursuing all these things? It's meaningless, Unless you say, well, whatever I'm already involved in my business or anything, I'm going to use it in a meaningful way for my practice and for helping others, right? And then the third one is the discouragement or putting yourself down, and is remembering, I have Buddha nature, I have the potential to realize that Buddha nature. Even if I find difficult to practice right now, or I feel like I'm never going to go anywhere meditating and I just want to be lazy. No, it's worth practicing. How can I practice with what I have now? And this doesn't mean like you can just take a break and relax. It's just, even if you are watching a movie or you're going for a walk or you are outside in a party or something, you don't let your mind be just wandering, lost in thought. You are observing your mind and fully present with what's going on. You can practice in any situation. It's just more difficult. That's why we do retreat, and we need formal sessions until we are in a very advanced stage where we have completely integrated practice, our meditation practices with our lives. Then we don't need to meditate like the teacher we're going to see tomorrow, Kamtrul Rinpoche. He still does retreat and meditates, but he is meditating all the time.